Hello, horror fam, best friends and ghoulish knights, and welcome to the 41st episode of Murders with Mertens. I am your host, Joe, and this is a podcast about horror comedy anthologies, body horror, folk horror, sci-fi horror, the horror adjacent, thrillers, the psychologically terrifying, scary films in general. Each episode, I sit down with a guest and discuss one of their favorite scary films so we can gush about everything that makes it just so damned cool. Viewers, thank you for the support. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you are so inclined. It all helps to get the word out and bring some much needed love to this little podcast. Audio listeners, the show's also available on podcast services around the world like Apple Podcasts and Spotify. So don't forget to leave a rating when you stop by. 5 stars is always appreciated. But enough of all that housekeeping, because today I have the privilege of welcoming back for his second appearance your doctor recommended daily dose of nerdiness, Mr. Carlos Rodriguez of Nerdaday Podcast. Carlos, how the hell are you?
I'm great, Joe. I'm so excited to do this, man. I've been waiting so long to talk about this movie.
Well,
Anytime I get to gush about this.
Yes. Well, we talked about doing this one quite a while back, and it just kind of made sense for this to happen this month.
Yeah.
As we're recording, it's October 3rd. For a lot of us horror fans, it's spooky season all year long, but now it is officially spooky season. So this is absolutely perfect timing because today's film is the 2007 horror anthology Trick or Treat, written and directed by Michael Dougherty. Film spent a couple of years doing the festival circuit before getting a home video direct to DVD release. Nobody had faith in this thing for some reason. Carlos, why Trick or Treat?
Yeah, so for me, I remember in the golden days, I would say, of the internet, right? We had it, Ain't It Cool News, before we found out how creepy Harry was.
Yep. Don't forget Dark Horizons as well.
Yeah, Dark Horizons
Oh,
and all.
yeah.
And I remember hearing about, hey, one of the writers of X-Men, and X2 and Superman Returns is going to do his own thing finally. A project he had when he was a kid in like film school. It was called Trick or Treat. And I remember hearing about it and it sounded really interesting. And then finally the first trailer popped up. And I was like, oh, I am like all in. I'm so in on this. And I remember hearing about it, and following up on it, and then crickets. Absolute crickets. And the only thing I could find, at least at the time, and even in retrospective, it seems like because of Grindhouse bombing in theaters, a movie with Quentin Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez filming a horror, back-to-back movie, which I loved and I saw in theaters. Uh, it bombed horribly, and I can tell you, as one of 6 people in that movie theater opening weekend, I understand, I get it, but
Yeah.
horror felt very off limits for a long time in like the mid aughts. I think it was a dry period too, which is funny. Like the previous movie that I covered with you, Scream 4, that was like late aughts, and that was very like similar. Like it wasn't like very. It's like retrospectively now it's held in a higher standard, but there's
Yeah, at
not a
the
lot of movies at
time.
that time.
Yeah. It's horror has definitely hit a renaissance within the past like 10 years or so. And,
Absolutely.
not just in that the film suddenly got good, they were always great. But,
Hmm.
just suddenly there's much greater respect. You've got people that actually like horror films doing reviews of horror films. That's a big
Yes.
plus right there. So many of the movies that we love, they have a bad reputation for being poorly reviewed, and so many of them are such good films and have there's just this better regard for them now. um so yeah, it was sad to see this thing kind of languish on a shelf for quite a while. I think I
Very long
read
time.
part of it was that it was originally scheduled to release like right around the time of Saw 4, and they're like, "Oh, we don't want that smoke." Because
Yeah.
obviously very
That was a
popular
juggernaut at the
franchise.
time. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Here we are with Saw 10 right now. So yeah, I understand. But also just the complete lack of faith that it sat around for 2 years. 2 years.
Just doing nothing. No whatsoever too. Like no word, no nothing, and then
Yeah.
finally it was like I think the announcement of like Warner Premiere, right? That's the sub studio within
Yep.
Warner Brothers that released it. Like I
That sounds
think
right.
that was when it finally released, and that's when they announced it, like, "Hey, Trick or Treat's coming." Like, listen, something's better than nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I absolutely saw this thing, using the, at the time, Blockbuster equivalent of the Netflix disc
Mm,
thing.
yes.
Um, yep. Loved it and promptly forgot about it for probably about another 5 years or whatever. Like many of those films from that service, I churned through a ton of horror on that thing back in the
Oh,
day.
that was the best
Um,
part of that. Yeah,
yeah, because you had all those After Dark Horror Fest films, and
I
y-
love those.
yeah, and it
Many
was
Deaths of Ian Stone. Let's go.
yes, yes, and Reincarnation. I
Mm,
love that one because there was
hmm.
tons of great J horror and other Asian horror that was coming in the aughts big time, and it was a great way to see it all. Um, but yeah, Trick or Treat. Suddenly people started to seem to be talking about it again within, the past 10 years. And, yeah, definitely gave it another watch and fell in love with it all over again. So
Hmm.
yeah, absolutely stoked to be able to talk about this film with a fan. Because as much as the horror community seems to respect it now and love it, I don't feel like I hear people having full blown conversations about it every day. So,
No, no, I'm like the only idiot on the internet and like in my friends groups. Like it's a requirement now. If you want to be my friend, you have to watch this movie, and I will promptly judge you if you look at your phone anything during watching this film. I make people watch it with me, and like my friend when he started dating his now wife, uh, I made her watch this, and she was like, I looked at her at the end, I was like, "What'd you think?" She's like, "Oh, I loved it." I was like, "All right, cool, Joey, you can marry her."
it's
I was like,
allowed.
"You're good
It's
now."
allowed. Well, all right, man. I think we should just jump into it. What do you
Yeah.
say? All
Let's
right.
do it.
Well, starting things off with an old timey trick or treat safety film that was originally shot for the trailer, but was incorporated into the opening of the film because they loved the way that it turned out. How cool is that? It's,
So good. I
oh,
love the archival footage, the
yeah.
old creepy costumes, like the five and dime.
Uh huh.
Oh, those plastic shirts. You remember that back in the day? The
Yeah,
plastic shirts
yeah.
with the shitty mask.
As a child of the 80s, I absolutely remembered the plastic
Hmm.
smock with the super cheap plastic mask with the super cheap rubber band
Oh,
stapled in that inevitably was going to snap at some point throughout the night. Either that or just hurt like hell at some point or another.
oh.
You'd have that plastic cutting into your face and
Yep.
yeah.
It was so rigid.
Yeah. Yes.
Shout out to my Alf costume when I was a kid.
Nice. Nice. Oh God, that's so perfect. Yeah. So the little instructional safety video suddenly cuts short, and we're treated to an Audi full of young women nearly hitting a young trick or treater hauling a jack o' lantern in a wagon. This is one of the best bits of this movie, though, in that you get all the characters from all four of the stories kind of getting sprinkled into all the other stories. Um, I think I read somewhere that Doherty even complained about what a pain it was to film all of that and edit it all together, and
I bet.
he kind of wished that he had the ability to release a version of the film where each story is distinctly separate from all the others, and you could just watch each individual story. I think that takes a little bit of the fun out of it, but
Yeah, because you could play a game with the movie, which is really fun. Trying to picture like when in the timeline of this one night
mhm,
that every story takes place in, because you will hear howling at one point, but then you'll see it later on, and you can
yeah,
connect the two, and trying to track where Sam is throughout the whole film is
oh yeah.
very interesting. Where he gets his accoutrements.
Yep, you could make definitely a full little chart that sets up the timeline, and you have your red string murder board behind you for something like this, and it would definitely help. Um, but we're introduced here to Henry and Emma as they're returning home from a night of partying, and she's been having less than fun time because it's that couple's costume where she gets to be in the not fun costume, and she doesn't even really care for Halloween all that much as it is. She's played by Leslie Bibb, and we get Hilo from Battlestar Galactica as Henry.
Yeah. Yep. I love that. I love that guy. He's also in Supernatural, like another horror
Yeah.
adjacent thing. Well, actually, straight up horror, but yeah, he's in Supernatural as well. Yeah, I love this. Lisa Bibb. This is one of my first roles I remember her seeing in, and I was seeing her in, and I was very like, oh, I like her, man. She's cool, and then she starts popping up in like Iron Man and other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So awesome.
Yep. Yep. And yeah, they have not really a spat, kind of like a nothing fight that couples, have. And she's like, hey, this is it. We're going inside, and I'm blowing out this jack-o'-lantern. And he's like, oh no, wait, don't do that. And there's rules, there's traditions. And she's like, this isn't Hanukkah. And then she bends down and blows out the pumpkin. And during this exchange, you could tell they're being watched from across the street, and you see, the view of somebody watching them through some type of a gauzy mask or something like that. And when she blows out that pumpkin, the little gasp that you hear is, it's, it'll get better. So yes, he cautions that there are rules as they head up to the porch, and their watcher follows them across the street. And Emma wants to take down all the decorations, and Henry just wants to get laid. He's saying that he'll handle it in the morning, and she knows exactly what that means. He's going to sleep till noon, play video games all day. Her mom's coming over the next day. She's like, she's going to have an aneurysm when she sees all that. And she's like, just let me take care of this. And he just stands there, clearly pouting. Yes. Yes. He's got such a dipshit look on his face.
Too. Like, it's not even like remotely anything else but pouting. Like, straight up.
Yeah. He's such a little baby about it. And she's like, fine, give me a minute to take care of this. Go upstairs and put on the tape, she says. And it's like, oh God, okay. And so he does. He quickly hops inside, and he no, it's after this. So yes, we get the watcher behind the mask, stalking her around the front yard as she, starts to clean up, and she mutters, "I hate Halloween," which, the person watching probably also finds really offensive. So, back inside, he finds this VHS tape that's labeled "Nature Special," and he pops it. Yeah, he pops it into the VCR upstairs, and we cut back to outside as Emma unplugs some lights and pulls down some sheets. They've got all these cool ghosts set up throughout their yard. Their yard is pretty decked out, actually.
The whole town is really impressive looking.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
You tell, like, they really sells the fact that this town loves Halloween, but like specifically theirs looks so cool.
Mm-hmm.
All the severed hands and everything through the trees.
Yeah,
for someone who hates Halloween, she really puts up with a lot.
Oh yeah. She let him get away with murder with all this stuff. Mm-hmm. So yeah, these ghosts, they're basically like crosses with a sheet flung over them, so that you've got the arms, spread out with the sheets draping down, and the way she's ripping the sheets off of these things, it's great because you're just expecting something to happen with that kind of aggressive motion and everything. I'm still chuckling to myself about the tape. But this is where, she starts to pull them down, and then she notices the undead kids leaving Krieg's house, and then spies this creepy guy across the street staring at her. And turns out it's just some dude waiting for his ride, and he hops in, and then she says, "Happy Halloween," as she pulls down this final sheet, and you're expecting something to happen with that, and there's nothing. But then she throws it into this box as she bundles it up, and then it just kind of blows up out of the box in this big gust of air, and something is clearly attacking her. And she screams, like you do. And Yeah, this is where Henry sort of wakes up from his stupor upstairs, and it's different screaming on the tape because it's clearly porn.
Hmm.
And he just kind of passes out again.
Smiling with that
Yeah,
stupid ass grin.
yeah. Oh God. And back outside, Emma's struggling with whatever this is that's under the sheet, fighting with her. And she kind of rolls out through their gate onto the sidewalk in front of these trick-or-treaters, and there's something clearly slashing away at her. And finally, you see under the sheet, there's this jack-o'-lantern sucker with this big chunk ripped
Ugh.
out of it, so it looks, kind of like a sickle, and this little hand raising it up and slashing it across her throat. And then you get the view from the outside of the poor little kids watching all this happen as the
Those
blood
little kids probably have the worst night
oh
throughout the
yeah,
whole Halloween. They appear multiple times, and it's just
they're the
bad for
clowns,
every time.
right? The clown trio.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Yep. Yeah. They
The
don't
most
have a good
innocent
time.
kids, and they see like some of the worst shit.
Oh yeah, yeah. So yeah, we get the blood spray against the sheet, and then something dragging her back into the yard. Sometime later, Henry wakes back up to static on the TV, and he goes outside to check on Emma, and he sees this ghost that has light under it, and he's probably thinking to himself, "That's not how he set that up." And he pulls off the sheet to find her dead and posed under there with the sucker stuffed into her mouth. And she's all wrapped up in orange string lights and everything. And we get the fun shift to the opening credits with the comic book panels.
Ugh,
Yeah.
so good. I love this comic book art. We mentioned it off air. Like it appears multiple times throughout the film,
Mhm.
but it's so awesome. It's such a great way to do the title sequence. It
Oh,
sets
yeah.
you up basically because it's
Mhm.
kind of giving you like an overview what the rest of this movie's going to be. It's
Yeah,
so
well, it
awesome.
introduces you to Sam. Tells you that it's going to be 4 stories, and he gives you just a little glimpse of what each of them is going to be. It does its job. Kind of like your old school TV intros, where you get a little taste of what's to come in the episode or what's to come in the season or whatever as you watch the intro. So that was kind of cool. And before the credits are quite over, we shift to a shot following somebody dragging a filthy pillowcase, that's hopefully just filled with candy, along this damp and leaf littered sidewalk. And you get the camera panning up to just a couple of people that we'll see later, like the principal Wilkins, and
Mm.
it was played by the awesome character actor Dylan Baker. God, he's
What a
so
performance
good
too
in
in
this
this one.
movie. Yeah, he's so good at creepy dude. He played a similar type of character. Did you ever watch The Americans?
Yes, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
he
He was great in that.
oh yeah, yeah. Over a course of a couple episodes at least. But yeah, he's just great character actor. He's great. And then we get the earlier, and we'll keep getting those little flashes on the screen of earlier or later, just like a comic book, as this film kind of goes in and out of different time periods within this story. And we cut to like this news puff piece about the town's Halloween parade, like you typically see on your local news. I think this was shot like in Vancouver, and
Yeah.
like there was a local town that had like a similar like big deal Halloween parade, so they were able to
Oh,
get
that I
like
know. That's awesome.
yeah, they were able to get like a lot of the people that normally participated in that thing involved with the filming of the movies. So that was pretty cool. Um, and you got to pay attention to what the reporter's saying about the different creatures that descend upon the town, because everything that she describes is what we get in this film.
Mhm.
But we won't quite get there yet. um Enter the local costume shop. They don't need no spirit Halloween in this town. Halloween's a big
No,
enough deal. They've got a badass costume shop.
it's a awesome costume shot, and it's bumping
Oh
at
yeah.
like 5 or 6 p.m. Like people are still buying costumes. They have a good stock. I'm like, damn, this
Yeah.
town's like ready.
Yeah, it's a big deal for them. Yeah. It kind of reminds me back in the day when I lived in Ann Arbor. Um, there was, I can't remember the name of the costume shop, but it was a really cool costume shop, around Halloween in particular, of course, but it was just filled to the gills with, all sorts of cool stuff like that. And just not the same vibe of your, not to shit on it, but your Spirit Halloween, which of course has
Yeah.
taken up residence in a former Bed Bath and Beyond this year. Like you do.
Yeah.
But it's,
GameStops, Toys R
yeah,
Us's, yeah.
exactly. And they always have this kind of empty vibe to them, even though they have all the stuff for the most part, especially if
Yeah,
you get
it
there early
doesn't
in the
feel
season. Yeah, it's late stage capitalism. Woo! Um, but yes, we've got this little shit peering into the changing rooms, and it's the ladies from the Audi. And of course, this little shit is the same actor that plays Sam, which
shout
is
out to Quinn Lord. He
yep, that's
gets double
awesome.
duty this movie.
Yep. And this little kid is peering in at these young ladies changing into their costumes. And we get the kid's mom. Also, they're reminiscing about their prior Halloween conquests and why they're
Mhm.
there. They're there to get laid.
Conquest.
Yes. It's something fun that I read about this film about how the 4 different stories are all about like how you experience Halloween at different stages of your life.
Oh,
You've
okay,
got
yeah.
the girls in their 20s here, that
Yeah, the
where
partying,
Halloween is
yeah.
all about partying, getting drunk, and sex, right? And you've got the kids in their teens where it's all about, going out trick or treating on your own for the first time and doing your own thing. And then you've got the principal story where it's all about like passing on stuff to your kids with Halloween. And then
Huh.
you've got Krieg's story at the end, which is all about just dealing with the bullshit of Halloween when you're a cranky old man. Um, so it was a really interesting way to put it. And I'm like reading this and I'm like, yep, that is
Yeah,
absolutely this movie. That's
that's like word for word. That's crazy. Like I never even thought of it that way because I'm so, especially during this scene that we're on. Like, like again, I've watched this movie like about 500 times, and I absolutely love this scene because it has such a different context. The second, third, fourth time you're around because these conquests, which we'll get into later, they're not necessarily conquests. And
they're
I
conquests of a
love
different
the one joke
type.
was like I just had some bad Mexican, and
Right.
the context of
Yes.
that, what you know later, is so beautifully perfect. Like it's so
Yeah.
awesome. Or like, oh yeah, well that one sailor turned out to be good. Like, who cares? She had a fat ass. So like all this stuff, and it sounds sexual, but it's not. Oh my
Yep.
god,
And
so
this is
perfect.
where the kid's mom yanks him away and then pounds on the door. And she's like, hey, there's kids out here. And they all laugh at that because they don't give a fuck. And, they're like, count of 3, let's all pop out in our costumes. And they do. And they're very much popping out because you've
Mhm.
got your timeless Halloween tropes of slutty Cinderella, slutty Bo Peep, and slutty Snow White. Um, but our 4th has yet to emerge. And they're like, come on. She's like, no, you're going to make fun of me, that kind of thing. And
Mhm.
because she's the shy one of the group, and they
The
finally get her to
runt.
come. Yes. Yeah. We get the tease of huffing and puffing,
Mhm.
before they blow the door down, I guess. And, yes, she comes out and, she's complaining about how she looks like she's 5 because she's dressed as Little Red Riding Hood. And yeah, one of those teases that you're talking about, they do mention to her, well, it is tradition because this is all about supposed to be about her first time, right? And they make
Yeah.
comments about her, being a virgin at 22. Yeah, it's not that kind of virginity.
Yep. Mm-mm.
She's doing something else for the first time, that's for sure. I also love that her name is Laurie, which of course is a nice little nod to Halloween. There's
Yep.
definitely a lot of Carpenter tribute in this film. We'll get there.
Absolutely.
But yeah, for her complaining about how, her boobs were popping out of her costume, they really weren't.
No, they were compared to her sisters. No,
Yes,
absolutely not.
exactly. And of course, it's Anna Paquin, and she was much younger when this film was done. God, I can't even think how old she is now, but yeah, she looks young enough to, you could expect, yeah, she's like in her
Mhm.
late teens, early 20s or something. And, they're bringing her along for her first big experience like this. And they go off to find their dates. And we cut to the cash register here, and her sister Danielle is flirting with the clerk. And he has a nice little Freudian slip as he's,
So badly.
yep. Yep. And, she invites them to this party that they're having at Sheep's Meadow. Um, and yeah, we move on to the kid with the filthy pillowcase from here. He's in one of those, this is my costume, stupid ass t-shirts that,
Yep.
we've all thought about wearing at one time or another. And I'm glad I never have, but yeah, it's like kind of funny the first time you see it, but
And
kind
then
of,
it's annoying afterwards.
yeah, a little bit.
Especially the type of kid he is. Like
Oh yeah.
it really fits his
Oh,
motif.
it's perfect for him. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And yeah, he's just smashing all the pumpkins that he can as he walks along here. His face is smeared with chocolate. It's funny because he's like clearly like kind of junior high age, like just old enough to be out doing this shit on his own, but still like such a child that he's got chocolate smeared all over his face.
Yep.
Yeah. So at this point, let's see here. Oh yes, also I have my notes. Sam would not approve about the pumpkin
No,
smashing.
absolutely not.
But we see one of the kids collecting jack-o'-lanterns whiz by in the background. It's the kid with the shopping cart.
Oh,
And
Schroeder, right? Schrader.
Schrader, yeah, which I'm sure is a play on Schroeder from the Peanuts cartoons, because
Yeah.
of course the Charlie Brown Halloween special is definitely mentioned a time or two throughout this thing. But yeah, this is where Charlie, this kid, he spies the candy on Wilkins' porch, and he walks up, and there's a little sign, hey, we're out, please take one. And of course, he like grabs a handful and then picks the whole bucket up and goes to dump it in his filthy pillowcase. And this is where Wilkins catches him and calls him out on his diabetes. Like, damn, yo.
It's like, damn, principal, you call him like, don't do that to me, man. You're calling me out
Yeah.
my shit.
Yeah. God, you got the freaking principal fat shaming the kid. Jesus.
Yeah.
But yeah, Wilkins, offers for Charlie to sit down for a minute, and just have a little talk. Then he tells him to sit down.
Very commanding. Which
Oh
is,
yeah.
I remember watching this and a lot of my exposure were like these character roles, as we mentioned with Dylan Baker, and he's very like demure and like ho hum or whatever, and like even as like in the time that what I knew him most from was the Raimi Spider-Man movies. He was Doc Connors.
Yep.
And I was like, oh man, I would love to see him play Lizard, but like he makes sense as Doc Connors. He's very like, I don't know. But like to see him have that commanding presence and voice, like sit down, and he, boom, Charlie just sits down.
Yep. From here, we cut back to the girls who happen to brush past Henry and Emma on the street.
Let's talk about Emma has one of the best costumes too, by the way.
Oh yeah, the giant boxy robot with the the what do you call them, the dryer ducts for arms.
I have to do this once a month. Like I have not done it yet, and I'm beating myself up every time I see him. I'm like, I had to do it.
Yeah, and I love his like wannabe Flash Gordon type of costume, with like the year 2000 style collar from Conan. That's all I could think of in this one, but in this watching. But yeah, they brush by them. Laurie's complaining about her lack of luck with men, and the other girls are encouraging her to be more forward. The other girls that are with them, Maria and Janet, they demonstrate by picking up the cameramen from this news crew. Cut back to Wilkins and Charlie, where the kid's just stuffing his face with the chocolate bar from the principal while he lectures about, tradition and so on, and how he was a little shit just like Charlie, and he's carving a pumpkin while he's talking and making really aggressive stabbing gestures with the knife while he's doing it.
The
Um,
sound design for this whole section, this quick section, is so beautifully done. Because I mean, as horror fans, you get so used to the shing of the knife or whatever,
mhm.
but it's so perfectly done as he's carving into the pumpkin and what is about to transpire, which is one of the most disgusting sounds that I literally have to mute every time I watch this with my wife, because she loves this movie absolutely and she'll watch it with me every time, but I have to mute it during this whole section because of the sounds alone.
Yeah, yeah. Well, speaking of Charlie, he starts to cough and he gets a little case of bubble guts. And this is while Wilkins is bemoaning people's lack of adherence to tradition. And yeah, Charlie didn't follow that important tradition of checking your candy, and he proceeds to projectile vomit down the principal stairs. Um, it just keeps going too. It's
And the colors, like, it was so well done. It's such a
yeah.
simple
Well,
special effect, but
in the
the black
dark,
and the red.
yeah, in the dark, it kind of just looks brown, and you're thinking chocolate. But yeah, you realize later it's worse than that. But
So
yeah,
gross.
the vomiting just keeps on going. It's like the scene in Team America: World Police. Um, but yes, Wilkins, he carries the boy inside, and that's where you absolutely see that it's bloody as all get out. What this kid is spewing out of his mouth, because he's got him kind of clutched up to his chest, and he's still, hawking stuff up onto the principal. Um, Wilkins, makes some kind of disgusted face. It's funny because he's got plenty of situations in this movie where he doesn't really show emotion, because clearly he's a freaking serial killer. But
Yes.
also, from time to time he does. Sometimes it's fake, but sometimes it's actually real. I think it's
Yes, his like
important.
his annoyance of bringing this heavy kid in, you
Mhm.
know, as he's struggling, like the struggle that you don't see with serial killers, where they're like, I can't get him up, and he's throwing up on me, and this is
Yep.
ridiculous, and it's just getting frustrating, but also sickening at the same time for himself. He's like, I just want to
Yeah.
be done,
I feel like
or the
this.
fear that he shows later,
Yeah.
even.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's
Yeah.
funny because, you've got comedy horror films and then horror comedies, and this feels much
Mhm.
more like a horror comedy in that it is a
Yes.
pretty horrific film, but it's got some great funny bits just sprinkled through the entire thing.
Hmm.
And this is absolutely one of them, just watching him struggle like crazy. And of course, as soon as he gets the kid inside and gets the door closed, that's when people are banging on his door, more trick or treaters. And as soon as he finally does get this door open, they see just the blood trail down his white shirt, and they scream at him, and then start laughing and compliment him on his costume. Uh, yeah, we're introduced to more characters at this point. We've got Macy as the angel, and I can't remember the kids' names, but you got Pirate Kid and Alien Girl. Um,
Yes.
and they get their candy from him, and they ask if he's willing to part with one of his jack-o'-lanterns. And Wilkins kind of hesitates, asking if they plan on smashing it, but she assures him no, it's for a scavenger hunt for UNICEF. And I think back to Chevy Chase's the shark thing on
Yes.
SNL. UNICEF. Um,
Which had
yeah,
to be it has to be a thing. But also for Wilkinson at this point, wouldn't he know if there was a scavenger hunt with UNICEF as the
it,
principal of their school?
maybe.
Like, but
I
he's probably in the moment. He's like, I
Yeah,
need y'all to leave as quickly as
I
possible.
think he's got other stuff on his mind for sure. But yes, you can tell the pirate kid is starting to suspect a little bit that the blood is real, because he beats a really hasty retreat, revealing Sam behind him lining up for
Hmm.
candy. And I love the little snatch of the candy bar. And then he just
Hmm.
kind of turns around, and as he walks down the stairs, dragging his sack of treats, it
I
sounds
love
like
this
there's a
so
cat inside of it that's ring with each hit of the step on the way down.
much. Hmm.
I
Most
don't know.
likely a black cat as well,
Yeah,
probably because it's tradition.
of course. Kind of curious where he got the cat, because that's definitely not in the story at all, but
No,
but I
he's
do
off
like
on
the
his little,
sound.
little adventures. I love it.
Yeah, yeah, it's perfect. We need that Trick or Treat 2 for more Sam for sure.
Dying for it.
I know. So yes, we cut now to the girls with the news crew. They're cracking open some beers inside their van as Laurie says goodbye to Danielle. She plans to walk to the party and find her own date along the way, and just kind of heads off into the parade. It's they're encouraging her to play hard to get, but like not too hard. But yeah, they just kind of drive off, and I think Danielle seems a little concerned, but she'll figure it out, right?
Yeah, she's got it.
Sure. And then cut back to Wilkins' house, where we see all the accoutrement of what he's been doing to poison Candy and put razor blades in him and all this stuff, all laid out on the
Insane
table.
setup. Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. He's been having quite the evening. In fact, when he came back home, he was gone to buy more candy. So, I think he kind of intended on killing the whole town's full of kids, or
Right.
something like that.
Like what is his idea for that night?
Yeah, you think it would somehow come back to him. I don't know.
Or it could be like a fun game for him because you think maybe not all the candy has razor blades. Maybe some are like,
yeah, that could be.
they're like, oh, I got food poisoning from it. And the other one's like, my kid died, bro. Like,
yeah, a little Russian roulette with the candy. I love how it's all unique brands to the movie too, because of course, with poison and razor blades and stuff, none of these candy manufacturers out there would be like, no, you can't.
Mars is
do
like,
that.
absolutely not.
Yep, because people would have an absolute freak out with their product come Halloween. But yeah, you see all of his stuff, and he grabs a large cleaver and like a big blanket or a tarp or something out of the closet. I love how the cleaver's up there. That must be, his body disposal cleaver. But yeah, he heads into the backyard, and it's revealed that he's already dug a grave. So, he had things kind of prepped and ready to go.
Yeah, he was ready.
Yeah, he had
definitely he was gonna get one kid at least.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's at this moment when his little boy calls down to him from an upstairs window, and he's got this obnoxious sing-song voice and telling him he's back from trick-or-treating. And Wilkins yells at him to keep his voice down and go watch Charlie Brown. And we get one of the best lines of the whole damn movie. Charlie Brown's an asshole. Billy Wilkins.
That gets me every time.
It's so good.
Billy Wilkins.
Language.
But he is.
Mm-hmm. And
probably the second most annoying kid in a horror movie other than the kid from the Babadook.
Yeah. That's a pretty annoying kid, all right.
And that's only because of his voice.
Yeah. Oh, God. So, yeah. Wilkins, after he gets his kid to go back in, he rolls this gurgling, churning body into the grave and is greeted by the neighbor's dog growling and snapping at him from behind the fence. So he hops down and uses the shovel to hack off a finger, and he tosses it over the fence to the dog as a distraction. But it's at this point that their neighbor, the great Brian Cox, comes out calling for his dog, whose name I finally realized this time around is Spite. Not Spike, but Spite.
Oh, I thought it was Spike.
Yeah, but it's kind of awesome, right?
Spike. That's actually, yeah, that's kind of perfect for his character too.
Yeah. So he's out in his backyard calling for his dog, and Wilkins kind of hides in the grave, but the not quite dead Charlie gives him away. And so Mr. Krieg, the neighbor, he jokingly accuses Wilkins of hiding bodies, but the principal says, no, he's just trying to fix an issue with the septic tank. Okay.
It smells like a hooker out here.
Yeah, smells like dead whores out here, he says.
Yeah.
Brian Cox is great. Let's see here. Wilkins goes back to dealing with the body, still not dead. And Billy starts screaming at him again about wanting help carving his jack-o'-lantern, especially the eyes. And that's a great touch because it's such a typical little kid thing of
Mm-hmm.
having trouble dealing with the small detailed parts on a jack-o'-lantern and
Yep.
needing help. And yeah, he's like, yeah, fine. And, you know, the kid is upset that he hasn't been able to hang out with his dad at all on Halloween and do any fun things with him. And he's like, well, what if we make caramel apples? And he's like, when are we going to do that? And he's like, after the jack-o'-lantern. And, but I got a date tonight. Okay. It's like, really? You're leaving this tiny little kid who also went trick-or-treating on his own.
Yeah,
Seems
you
kind of
start
young for
realizing he
that.
went on his own because there's that little clip with Dylan Baker. It's like, Daddy, I want this. Daddy, I want this. Daddy, I wish Mommy was still alive.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, he gets the kid to go back inside and we cut to Wilkins all finished up. He's got a tree planted in the grave and a garden gnome on top of
Waters
it
it.
as well. He's watering it too. It's like, that's not how you water a tree after you plant it. You got to put a hose on that thing and you got to run it
Yes, you do.
forever. But this is where he's griping about his annoying son. Yes.
Mhm.
And he just kind of throws that watering can down.
Yep.
And he's just, kind of pissed in general. And as he walks up his back steps, he hears some pounding from the neighbor and he looks over and he sees Krieg kind of pounding at the window at him. And he gives him this reciprocal screw you that he got from him earlier. And he turns back and starts stepping inside. And it's right after he turns and starts stepping forward, we see Sam leap at Krieg and take him down.
Lunge.
Yep. And I love how we get a lot of these scenes from multiple angles throughout this film because that's good. But yes, Wilkins gets inside, he shuts the door and calls out for Billy in a similar sing-song type of style. And he goes to reach for a knife on the counter and we get a fun little jump scare from Billy in a mask. And well, it's time to head downstairs to do their work, right? I love how they keep implying that Wilkins is going to kill his kid, but then you just, realize that they're just fucking around with the head of Charlie. Because Wilkins plunges this knife down into the kid's head with this just orgasmic look on his face, just absolute pleasure shoving this knife into this, obnoxious kid's head. And then he pulls it out and then shows his little boy how to hold the knife properly. And then we get the little, don't forget to help me with the eyes line from the kid.
Great little tag at the end right there for that.
I also like that the kid is kind of dressed up like Chucky.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, he does have the red hair and all too. And it's funny when you watch that. My first viewing of that, I was under the impression that he was going to kill Billy as well. I was like, wow, is he going to kill his son? And are we going to see that? Like, because we already seen one child die already at this point. Are we going to see it again? And it also helps with that line that's perfectly like I said earlier with Dylan Baker's like acting for it, but like, Daddy, I wish Mommy wasn't dead or whatever. Because then you get the implication in my head. I was like, oh, Wilkinson killed his wife,
and he probably
it could be true,
did.
But most likely he did, and he just misses his mom. So like, then it just takes a darker turn somehow than him killing his son.
Yeah, and I'm glad that he doesn't. I also, appreciate the whole, this kid is just as messed up as his father is. And, chances are even Wilkins' father was, a killer
Similar,
of some sort, or at least somewhat similar. Yeah. So yeah, it kind of wraps up this little tale and we move on to the alien, the angel, and the pirate trio looking for another pumpkin at a house with an adult Halloween party going on. And a woman answers the door, a very drunk, middle-aged, sexy kitten, and she's inappropriate with them, asking them if they want a drink. as she hands out candy and wiggles her ass in them. And and
The
as
tail just looks stop.
yeah, it's like smacking him in the face. That's pretty funny. But as she's doing all this shit, they can see the absolute horrors of the adult party inside because this is almost like a swingers party. Because yes, as they're walking away afterwards, the little pirate kid is like, Coach Taylor was in a hot dog costume, butt fucking a pig, I think. And
I love that line because it's like sheer horror from him. Like it's like I have seen things that I can never get back,
and I can't unsee them. I am going to need years of therapy at this point. Yeah, and this is where they run into Schrader, the other teenager of this group. And again, like we said, it's probably a play on Schroeder from the Peanuts stuff. But he's got a shopping cart. And he's managed to snag 3 jack-o'-lanterns. And they're like, 3? That's it? And it's like, well, some asshole's been smashing them all the way up and down the streets. So
such a great callback.
Yep. And 3 is not enough for whatever they need to do. And they stop by this house with this awesome front yard just filled with burning jack-o'-lanterns. And here's where we get the first use of the R word in a time where that was already pretty old and kind of played out and not great. And it's probably like the part I dislike most about this film. The casual
I
use.
definitely feel that. Yeah, I feel like Doherty would not have written that in at this point. Like if he were to, let's say, remake that movie today, like I can guarantee he probably wouldn't have that language in it.
No,
it does feel very 2003, 2005.
Yeah.
And even then, like you said, still like at a time where it was like, hey man, we don't do that anymore.
Yeah,
man.
we don't need to use that. Doctors don't use that. But
exactly. Yeah.
But
why are we?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it's the one part that I really don't care for in this film, but it's over and done with pretty quick. Basically, they're talking about the girl that lives at this house who is, clearly on the spectrum. And it's her name's Rhonda. She steps out in this witch's costume, and it's revealed that she has carved all of these pumpkins. And they kind of pump up Schrader to invite her along because, of course, he's like the attractive teen, and they figure she'll swoon for him and come along, and they can get the jack-o'-lanterns they need.
Rhonda is probably the most adorable human character, and she's so innocent, so sweet.
She is pure innocence,
the perfect embodiment of like what Halloween is, and which a lot of this movie is, but like her specifically, her character is like very just like the purest form of what Halloween is. Even her correcting them about the name convention of where it comes from.
Yeah.
Like, it feels very Rhonda. Like it's very perfect for her role.
Yeah, she's got this cool little witch's costume. She's got the awesome cat's eye glasses. Yeah, good for her. But yes, they get her to come along, and we cut to the parade downtown and an alley where there's many couples that are making out. And just as the camera enters the alleyway, you see in the bar or cafe or whatever next to it, here we go with Emma and Henry. They're in the corner booth there at the window. So yes, in the alleyway, there's a man in a dark hood with, gloves that would be perfect in any giallo, sexing up a woman who's too lost in pleasure to realize that he's been biting her this whole time, and she's bleeding like crazy. And when she realizes, she has a massive freak out and kind of stumbles out of the alleyway screaming. And wow, what a horrible night to be in this kind of a situation, because everyone's going to assume that it's makeup, you're playing a bit, or you're drunk. And,
she falls right in front of a
Henry and Emma. Yes.
People that have, Emma screaming for help, and she's all bloody.
Grabs her
people
arm
behind her
too.
that have similar makeup.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And Henry's like, yeah, she's drunk. Come on, let's go. And she gets up and she's like, seriously? Nobody? Nothing? And she turns around and there's the man in the dark cloak, and he, does one of those kind of vampire swoops with his cape. And next thing you know, he's kind of posing her in front of the barber shop dead. Um, yeah. And it's interesting. This costume that this person has, it's really hard to tell who this is.
It is. I love the mask. I absolutely love this mask. And I've always been like, with the resurgence of Trick or Treat as like memorabilia and all the stuff that you can buy, like Spirit Halloween is basically like it's like Hocus Pocus, Trick or Treat, and then some other movies, or
Yeah.
like Killer Clowns a lot for a lot of merchandise.
Yeah.
As
They had
well.
a big Beetlejuice section this year.
Yes.
Funnily enough, no Lauren Boebert costumes next to the Beetlejuice section. That's
You
a
would
shame.
think they would go hand in hand.
Yeah. Hand in hand. Yes.
Hand in hand. But as you see all this stuff and they have masks, like the Trick or Treat Studios, funny enough, one of the awesome mask companies out there that do like pretty close to movie accurate mask. There's not this one. This one's not there. A lot of the kids that we see later on the school bus, their masks are on sale. Sam's
That's
different forms are on sale, but not this one. And I want this one so bad. Because I would honestly buy it and probably wear it as a costume. It's so well done, the mask.
Yup. It's good. It's, little Phantom of the Opera even, of, some of the different incarnations of that. But yeah, we cut from here to the teens making their way to their destination. And on their journey, Rhonda is schooling the pirate kid on the origins of Halloween. We got the whole Sam Wayne thing and all that jazz. And they make it to the rock quarry. And Macy, the leader, kind of fills them in on the story of the Halloween school bus massacre. And, somebody's like, don't call it that. And we get a 30 years ago type of flashback where we have 8 special needs kids who I discovered today all were played by actors with special needs or, some form of injury or disability or something.
Oh.
I was not aware of this. But yeah, they're on their way home from school on Halloween. They're all in costume. And I also love how we cut to the outside of the bus in the flashback, and we've got Sam poking at a dead bird with a stick.
Yes.
He even lifts it up and looks at it.
Yeah, he's so cute. I love him.
Yes, he's adorable even in his horribleness. But yeah, turns out the parents of the kids, they got sick of having to deal with their children and, their unfortunate situation, and they wanted to do something about it. So they all pooled their money and they paid off the bus driver to do something for them. And yeah, basically shows him driving to an abandoned rock quarry, this rock quarry. And he just, blows through the gate with the school bus, never
no issue.
Yep. And parks the bus there at the ledge before, the drop down to the water below. And he gets up and he's, like checking the chains. So clearly all these kids were chained in this bus before all of this.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand it was the 70s, but come on, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's checking their chains, but also dropping some candy in their Halloween buckets along the way. It's so weird, but
it's so disturbing.
Oh yeah,
and mind you, at this point, we've already seen like a teenager get murdered, but like this, for whatever reason, like takes the cake for disturbing.
Yep. Yeah, one of the kids that they focus on quite a bit is this kid with a vampire mask. And he manages to get loose and try to drive them away while the bus driver's at the back of the bus. And unfortunately, all he ends up doing is driving the bus over the edge and into the water. And the bus driver does make it out, a little battered, but okay-ish. And this is where you hear his wheeze, and that'll come back later. But Macy narrates that he was never heard from again. The bus, she says, was never found, or the town didn't want it to be found. And then this is where the alien girl butts in and she tells Macy that she's so full of shit. Um, That's good. It's good because to this point, Macy's been doing a pretty solid narration of this old story. And,
Mm-hmm.
she's sounding, pretty informed and everything. And to have somebody just pop up and, give her shit about it then it was great. Love
It
it.
is such a kid thing too. Be like, fuck you, you're lying.
Yep,
Get the fuck out of here.
exactly. Yes. So Macy then finally reveals that they're going to place the jack-o'-lanterns that they brought beside the lake of the quarry as an offering to the dead. And Macy, Schrader, and the alien girl, they pile into the elevator. And there's a little bit here where Rhonda and Schrader, Macy can see that Rhonda's kind of sweet on him, but of course,
Mm-hmm.
she's into Schrader, so she's going to be nasty to Macy or nasty to Rhonda. And yeah, that's why she and Schrader and the alien girl, I think her name's Sarah, they all
Sure.
pile into the elevator and then shut the gate because it can only hold 3 safely, she says. Don't worry, we'll send the key back up for you once we get down there. And yeah, they start heading on down. Uh, and here's where we cut back to Lori, finding nothing but couples as she walks the parade route. Um,
All amazing costumes, by the
yeah,
way.
yeah,
Like
you get the
everyone's costumes. The
yeah,
barbarian lady is
yeah,
one of the coolest ones. Like that's very Rhea Ripley before we got her now.
yes, yes. You got the centaur dude where his girlfriend is in the back portion. That's really
I
unfortunate,
love it.
but it's
Yeah.
but she's clearly having fun. It's okay,
Fair.
I
Yeah, she's
guess.
having a ball.
Yeah, and but yeah, it's all these situations, and she's clearly dejected, and she's kind of taking a breather on a bench, and she gets a phone call from her sister Danielle, who tells her that she found her a date at the party, and unbeknownst to Lori, but knowns to us, it's this middle-aged dude in a baby costume. Who's
Is he's kind of young. I love that
yeah,
line.
yeah, that's cute. But yeah, um, so she's like, just come to the party. We got somebody for you. It'll be cool. And as they talk, the man in the dark cloak and hood, he's staring Laurie down and she sees him and she's a little distracted as she's talking.
Mhm.
And they get off the phone with each other. And the clerk from the costume shop is coming up behind Danielle and he starts like kissing on her neck. And she tells him not now. And she gets his name totally wrong. And he corrects her on it. And she's like, whatever. And all of a sudden you hear all this howling. And
Love
yeah,
it.
this is where we cut back to the teens at the quarry, and it's the pirate kid and Rhonda waiting for the elevator to come back up, and you hear the howling in the distance. She's like werewolves, and oh, Rhonda,
Mhm.
but yeah,
So close. Yeah.
yep, yep. The elevator comes all the way up, and they get in and they write it down. And she's listening to the other teens down below using the R word again in the mist, and you can only see them by the jack o' lanterns that they're carrying, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Um, and then you start hearing them scream, and the lights go out one by one from the jack o' lanterns down below, and they're the two of them, they're just terrified, and Pirate Boy's really playing this part here. um as they come all the way down, and she's going to go out and check on them. She's pretty brave, but he's too afraid, and he's going to stay in the elevator with the gate locked. um and she steps out into the mist, and she approaches the water's edge and she finds the bus. And as she's stepping up, you see these something kind of floating around in the air. And it's kind of hard to tell what it was. At least,
Hmm.
I don't know. Watching the way I was watching, it was difficult to tell until you see bloody costume pieces on the ground
Yeah.
and in the water. And you realize that what's floating through the air are the feathers from Macy's angel wings. Yeah,
It's such a
it's
great like little by little reveal as the mist like clears up.
yep. And as she reaches down for something in the water, a hand reaches up and grabs at her. And we've got these undead kids coming after her,
Mhm.
attacking Rhonda. And as she stumbles around, she finds the pirate kid getting his guts torn out. And she loses her glasses as she stumbles around, and somebody ends up stepping on them. And the undead kids, they pursue her, and she ends up falling off this ledge and hitting her head in the fall and blacking out. And as she comes to, she's surrounded by these undead kids, but you hear them asking about her if she's okay and everything. But of course, she sees this and freaks out, and she clocks one of them pretty good. It may have been Macy. I hope it was
I think
Macy.
it was Macy, yeah,
Yeah.
because she's like very upset.
Yes. And she kind of scrambles backwards, screaming. And, finally Schrader like pulls off his mask and explains, hey, it was all a trick. It's revealed these are all her friends playing a prank on her. This whole thing was just this great excuse to scare the shit out of the poor girl that's on the spectrum. That sucks. But
Yeah.
Schrader kind of shows some remorse, and Alien Girl and Pirate Kid, they look concerned about the situation, but Macy just continues to be queen bitch of the universe. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah,
Enough's
so
not enough for her. She needs more.
yeah, probably mostly because of the looks between Schrader and Rhonda
Hmm.
and her just being pissed and possessive. But yeah, she gets Pirate Kid to go with her to go pick up their shit so that they can get out of there. And this is where the boy he comments on this one last jack-o'-lantern being lit, and of course Macy just kicks it into the water. And it's like, we know this is not a good thing, right?
Mm-mm.
Yes. So he wonders aloud then about the bus being there. If this was all just a prank, how is the bus here? And she's like, well, that part was true. And then they start hearing some sounds, and Macy starts kind of blaming it on, the kid. And he's like, it's not me. And they start getting a little spooked, and we cut back to Schrader kind of keeping Rhonda company, and we hear their friend screams in the distance, and he's like, not again. So he gets up to go check on them, and he tells Rhonda to wait there, and he pretty immediately finds the others, and they are
Hmm.
freaking the fuck out, and it's because there is an undead horde coming to chase them. And they like get Alien Girl with their chains and drag her off.
It's
That,
crazy.
yeah, that was pretty cool. And they make it back to the elevator only to find that Rhonda's inside with the rest of their lit jack-o'-lanterns, and she's locked them all out. And they're pleading with her. It's so good. And she's kind of weeping a little bit as she's
Yeah.
staring at them. And they plead with her, and you see all the undead kids coming, and she slowly picks up the key for the gate and kind of reaches out towards it, but instead her hand moves over and hits the
Oh,
button for the
love it.
elevator. That's
It was
right.
such.
Fuck
I was like
you.
hype. I was so hyped when I first saw the film,
Yep,
and
I
that
was
happened. I was like, yes.
good for you, Rhonda. Good for you.
Fuck
And
bullies.
yeah, no kidding. And the elevator starts to go up, sealing their doom. And she gives this little wave goodbye.
Hmm.
It's so good as the undead kids close in. And she reaches the upper level, and you hear all this slashing and ripping and screaming from down below. She comes out of the elevator, and Sam's up there. And they kind of exchange this knowing look with each other and then go their separate
Yeah,
ways.
she's like one of the few to like actually acknowledge him
Hmm.
in a way, because everyone else is dismissive. Like Wilkinson, just like here, take whatever. He's not even looking at the way. He's like, here, take whatever
Yeah.
candy you want. As like Sam just grabs, well, we'll see later what kind of
Yep.
candy you got.
Yep.
And everyone else, he's like a player in the background. But like for her to like, which is kind of special as well, for Sam specifically, like in how much reverence she has for the holiday. For her to see him, recognize him, and acknowledge him, I think it's like a show of respect.
Yep. Yep. So they part ways, and we cut to Lori alone walking a path in the woods that's lined with jack-o'-lanterns, and it looks so good. Um, and she hears a few twigs snap and looks around to find nobody there. Here's a few more as she continues to walk on, and she yells out that she's not in the mood and whoever it is should just come out. And of course, she turns around to find the man in the cloak standing there behind her and screams. Um, we cut to the party where Slutty Bo Peep is getting hammered and telling Danielle that Lori will be okay. And Danielle's not so sure. Their mom always said that she was the run of the litter. Again, with the nice little nods to what's to come. Cut back to the man slamming Lori against a tree and licking her neck. My, what big eyes you have, he says. And then he bites down on her neck and she screams. Back to Bo asking Danielle about the guy she was setting Lori up with. And then camera moves down to the baby man all passed out drunk. And then we get this woman.
I love Bo Peep's look too. Like her name's Janet, and she's like, all right.
Yep. and
that'll do. Yeah.
And we cut to one of the women there at the party screaming, and Laurie's red cloak is thrown into the middle of the clearing, kind of crashes against a tree and drops to the ground. And Danielle immediately thinks it's Laurie, because of course, and she goes to check on the body, but it's the man beaten to a pulp, and he pleads for help. And we get the POV shot of Lori approaching and all the ladies kind of stepping back, and there's almost kind of a look of awe on their faces.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, she's a little bloodied, but she kind of seems to have found her mojo, right? She has
a different look too.
Yeah, her hair's kind of teased out a little bit. Yeah.
She's like more empowered at this point too. Like it feels like she's just like chest out, everything. Like she's just like, I'm here.
She is ready to go. And Danielle admonishes her tardiness, and she apologizes, telling her that it took longer than she expected, playing hard to get, which is funny considering all of this now. And while Danielle kind of checks to make sure that she's okay, Snow White steps over to the man, and she just kind of rips his mouth open.
Yeah.
You almost think she's going to rip his jaw off the way she does it, but no, she just reaches in and pulls out his fake vampire teeth. That, looking at these things, they must have been awfully sturdy, but it looks like the little kid vampire teeth in a way.
Like it's like an adult version of them. Exactly. I've worn like I've worn werewolf fangs. Funny enough, at a local shop here in Philly called Masquerade, and they like you put like the little glue
dental adhesive,
yeah, and they're kind of sturdy. So like he has like a whole row of them, and almost this like you said, these like very little kids, like the waxy like teeth that we used to play
the little
with,
cheap
like
ones,
an adult veneer version of it almost.
Yep. And she looks at them kind of, looking a little bit like she's impressed at first.
Yeah.
And then she unmasks him, and it is revealed that it's Principal Wilkins. And he's got like the Batman style eye makeup on.
I love it.
Yeah. But he asks her, "Who are you people?" And she just kind of smiles at him and walks away. And this is where he kind of looks around to find dead and dying men everywhere, and he starts screaming, and he rips the cloak aside, and we see that he has a horrible compound fracture on his leg. And back with Lori telling Danielle that she's nervous. Her older sister tells her to just be herself. And then we get the needle drop of Marilyn Manson's cover of Sweet Dreams Are Made of This. And this was almost...
It builds so...
Oh, yeah. It is perfect for this scene, but this was almost Patsy Cline's fever.
Yeah, I know. I read that, and I was like, I don't know what would be better in this scene, because I'm so used to Manson's, like...
Yeah.
The Manson drop, and I'm like... And I'm so in love. This is absolutely my favorite part of the movie, and I would like to gush more once we get to the reveal, but, like... Once that starts hitting, I remember watching it, and even to this day, again, I've watched it. I'm not even joking, probably 500 times.
Yeah,
I get goosebumps still.
Oh, it's perfect. And, the studio wanted something with a little bit more punch. And, yeah, I could see it. Yeah.
I would love
And
to see an alternate cut with Patsy Cline. So
yeah, because that's,
see how that would
that
go.
one's a bop as well. I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
old. I mean, hell, the Manson cover of this song was old at the time this movie came out. It was more than 10 years
Exactly.
old because that was like mid 90s. But
Yeah, that came out for what, like disturbing behavior, right, or something like.
no, even before that,
Oh,
it's
that's right.
it was relatively old. Yeah,
Yeah.
and so are we. But
Yes, we are.
um
Yes.
but yeah, Laurie steps over as all the women start writhing to the music, and she tells Wilkins that it's her first time, so bear with me. And they all start to dance, and Laurie's kind of ripping up his clothes, and they all start to disrobe and then also start to change because yep, werewolves.
Oh,
And they're also the cool kind of werewolves that shed their skin when they transform, um, which you don't see as much in werewolf films anymore.
I yeah, no, I feel like the most recent example of that, and I don't even know if you remember this. It was a Netflix show called Hemlock Grove.
I do remember that show. I don't
Yeah,
think
with
I
Bill
ever
Skarsgård.
yeah. I don't think I ever quite finished it, but I did
Same, but
watch
I
like
remember those
most
transfer
of it.
stations were brutal looking, similar to
Hmm.
like American Werewolf in London or The Howling.
Yep.
Like,
Yeah.
but this has such a different turn because it doesn't seem painful. It seems sexual,
Yeah.
like a
Again,
relief almost, like a
yeah, very much.
orgasmic.
These are people in their 20s celebrating Halloween, and
Mm,
Halloween in
yeah.
your 20s is all about sex and getting fucked up. So,
Mm-hmm.
yes. Yeah, it's great. And we get the what are you doing from Wilkins whimpering at her, and she says to him, my, what big eyes you have. And then
Mm.
she kind of rears back, and you see her bare her fangs, and then she just digs in. And it's an interesting thing with this film. Most of the kills do happen slightly off screen.
Mm-hmm.
They're not
Yeah,
like you don't really see the graphic nature of the deaths.
this
So
movie could almost be PG-13 if it weren't for, and even to this extent, because like even though I'm saying with the transformations being sexual in nature, or at least
mhm.
seeming very sexual in nature, it's not like
It's not
a
overt.
tasteless use
Yeah.
of nudity where we had like the porn scene in the beginning that
Hmm.
feels like very like, oh, it's a horror movie, yeah, I know what we're
Yeah.
doing. But like this, you could almost get away with it. Like I don't know if
Yeah.
they
There's
had some
one boob
James Cameron
shot
magic.
in this whole scene,
Yeah,
and that could
it's
very
quick.
easily have just been edited out.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
Or if they
so,
could somehow had James Cameron to be like, hey, MPAA, just let it happen.
yeah.
He did it with Abyss. He could do it again.
Yep. Yep. Oh
But this
God.
scene, man, I absolutely love. And there's so many as you watch it so many other times. This scene specifically is my favorite section or story of the whole movie. Coach that we mentioned earlier, the pirate
Oh, and the
boy
hot
saw.
dog costume. Yeah.
He's in
Yep.
there.
Yep.
So that's the implication that their mom is the cat lady because you see her. There's some people you see like extras in the background. They are back now. The place where they party is Sheep's Meadow, so
Hmm.
Wilford Sheep's Clothing.
Yep.
Um, Bo Peep is my favorite thing to watch because as a day job, I happen to work at an animal hospital, and I have a very dumb dog, who's very like runtish, like very not bright in the head, but very beautiful. He's a good looking boy, just not smart. And Janet's characterization, once you watch it, feels like almost like Ed in Lion King. Like
Okay.
not the brightest bulb, but very it's just like, oh, what a cute dog. Because if you take into account like they're dogs and they're
Yeah.
like this pack mentality, she's very much like the hey. Like just she'd probably be the one wagging her tail for like nothing. Like that's how
Yeah.
I
I'm not
picture it.
here for a long time. I'm here for a good time. Yeah.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And just everything the fact that even with it, in the context of the movie, it seems like only women can be werewolves. Um, and then there's that whole, I mean, there's so many things you can do. Obviously, it's a man writing it, so
Sure.
there's some connotations that maybe we're not the best suited to write for. But if you had a female writer with this material, with this world,
Mm-hmm.
I like, can you imagine what they could run with? I remember Doherty for a while wanted to write a series, I think, about female werewolves. I had a bad title for it.
Oh no.
I believe it was called Bitches, if I was right. I think it was in development for a little bit. I was like, that's not even when it was announced. I'm like, you're gonna have to change that title when it comes to production. And I don't think I ever got to production phase, but I was in pre-production for a bit. But
If Lana Condor could have a Netflix show called Boo Bitch, then I'm sure they could have done Bitches. So
they could have, yeah, they could have. You just need, you know what you do is you create the show and then just have the rest of the whole team just be, the writers be women, directors be women. Just like, hey, I got this awesome idea, but like, I'm a dude. Like, I'll let y'all run with this.
Yep.
But I love the connotation of that. Like, women are werewolves and empowered by it.
Mm-hmm.
And again, like, where we see American Werewolf in London and The Howling, and it's very painful, or Hemlock Grove, for instance, like, it's very painful to see how they transform. This is euphoric, and it feels like they talk about tradition, which is a big part of all of Trick or Treat, but this specifically, it seems so tailored for what Trick or Treat is, like, as an anthology movie, and how playful it is. All the jokes too in the beginning when they start making sense. Like, I had some bad Mexican. That means they ate some Mexican dude, and it did sit well. And all those, it was like, oh no, we were in San Diego this year. Like, just like they are roving like the United States, just devouring.
Yes.
It's so good.
Yeah. So after Laurie digs in, they all kind of howl and devour their prey as Sam watches from the edge of the clearing, and we get the cool little match cut of Sam's head and the moon. So this must have been probably like the latest point of the film, or at least one of them, because he would have had to have gone there after dealing with Krieg.
No, it would have to be Rhonda, right? Because Rhonda hears the howling.
So yeah, maybe he goes there after
like right after he probably walks over to Rhonda.
Yeah, okay, and then he comes back to town. Okay,
yeah, and then Emma.
Yeah, because really Emma's probably the final thing. Yeah, okay, yeah, makes sense. Well, I don't know about that. We'll get to that in a moment.
Yeah.
But yes, we cut to earlier as the Clown Kid trio approach the door of a spooky, dark house, and one of them musters the courage to knock, and then you get a beat, and then you hear the many locks start unlocking, and just the looks on their faces as they're waiting, and the door slowly opens to darkness and a wheezing breath, and then you get a growl and glowing eyes, and the kids run off in terror, dropping their candy, and we get Krieg stepping into the doorway, and he calls his costume dog Spike back to him. And we see that the dog's got a little mask on with the glowing eyes, actually. And he's also got one of those little skeleton costume t-shirt things. It's great. Krieg loves his special boy. But yes,
like the only thing he loves.
Yeah, that's really it. That and booze. He sits down in front of the fire to watch an old Ron Popeil infomercial. You know, the whole set it and forget it thing.
My God, that took me back when I was like watching it. That's how I knew I was old. Like when I was watching this movie, I was like, oh yeah, I remember watching it. Oh wait, shit. And I had a TV like that when I was growing up. Oh shit.
Yep, exactly. And he's kind of flipping through the channels, and we get some stuff, like the news thing from downtown. I think it's what is it? Monster Island, the one Scooby-Doo movie. There's a little snippet from it, and he finally just settles back on the infomercial while he kind of passes on the candy. It's probably a good thing, and goes back to drinking himself to death. And it's probably some of Wilkins' poison stuff because he got it from the trick-or-treaters. It's not his own supply there. So
he technically saved those kids.
yeah, there you go. So maybe they didn't have such a bad night after all. They're just scarred for life. That's all.
Yep.
Spite hears something and starts barking his buns off, and Krieg goes to investigate, looking out the window, and he sees his front gate swinging closed. And that's when we get an egg flying at his window hard enough to break the glass, and you just barely see Sam running away. I don't know where he got the eggs, but he has his ways. So Krieg goes to the closet and grabs a baseball bat, and he hears his dog outside now in the backyard. And we get the other angle of Krieg dealing with his dog and talking to Wilkins as the dog is just digging after this finger like crazy because he's got a treat. And you get Sam watching all of this from the shadows. So Krieg finally, heads back inside with his screw you, and back in there, Spite's barking at the front door. So Krieg just bursts outside, to tell off some kids, only to find jack-o'-lanterns everywhere, and it looks great. It looks like Rhonda's house. But he's like about to smash one of them with the bat when Spite's barking again at something else, and Krieg looks back in and he sees Spite focused on the stairs to the second floor, and the doggy door is swinging. So he comes back inside and the dog runs upstairs, and while Krieg is locking up, he starts to hear, stuff upstairs, and he looks up the ceiling, and there's the barking and this childlike laughter that, that's never a good sign. So he grabs his shotgun and starts to go up the stairs, and there's this little flash of Sam running by the head of the stairs, and there's like a spark of like a light going out or something like that. And he ascends the stairs, and I think this is maybe where we get like the super, super effective pitter patter of little kid feet.
Oh, yeah.
Which is always extra creepy. And somewhere around here, the dog probably dies because
there is a whimper. Yeah.
Mm-hmm, and I'm pretty sure that's where Sam gets the blood for purposes. He makes his way down the hall and pushes the bedroom door open with the shotgun, and there's something wiggling under the covers of his bed. And he pulls them back to find this like mechanical zombie hand or something like that.
It's such a weird toy.
Yeah, it's something probably from the costume shop or something. And cue the jack-o'-lantern in the corner of the room that bursts into super high flames, revealing bloody writing all around the room. All different parts of, trick or treat, smell my feet, give me something good to eat. And it's everywhere.
As there's like this like beautiful, almost like hymn-like version of it playing as he's like looking around.
It's wow, it is something. And those flames just keep on going from this jack-o'-lantern. This is where we cue this kind of rushed camera from the hallway, which makes you think something is coming from that direction. But instead, Sam's little hand reaches out from underneath the bed and slashes at his ankle.
Oh.
And he drops to the ground and drops his gun. And Sam slowly rises from the other side of the bed, staring at him with this little cock of his head, this little bit of curiosity from him. And then, Sam lifts up this candy bar and peels back the label to reveal the razor blade stuck inside. And Krieg reaches back for the gun, but when he turns back, he finds himself only firing at the jack-o'-lantern instead. And Sam is nowhere to be found. So he flees in terror, and he trips over a glass candy bowl placed at the head of the stairs and falls down the stairs with it. And there's glass everywhere, and he goes to push himself up, putting his hands in the broken glass. And there is a red gumball that bounces down the stairs in this fun homage to the Changeling. Have you ever seen that one?
Yes. When I saw that,
So,
I was like, "Oh my god!"
the fun bit about that is that the guy working the camera in all of this is his first gig was a cameraman on the Changeling.
Oh my god, that's amazing.
It's nuts. But yeah, we get that, and he kind of uses the gun to help prop himself up, and yeah, he uses
I don't
his.
know if you noticed this
Oh,
real quick, but
yeah,
on my viewing today, I didn't notice there's also razor blades on the steps.
yeah.
There,
There's
there's a
all this
few, and I was
shit
like, I thought it was
everywhere.
just the hard candy and the glass that was hurting him, and I was like, well, how's he getting
I
so
think this
bloody?
bowl of candy was stuffed with all this shit, and then just
Mm-hmm.
it all just scatters and breaks and spreads
Yeah.
everywhere as it goes down. But yeah, he's having a bad day. And he's got these horribly bloodied, mangled hands, and he's trying to get to the, the chain locks and the barrel bolts and all that stuff on his door. And as he's working at all this stuff, we get this great shot from over his shoulder of Sam peeking his head down from the upstairs landing
Mm-hmm.
and then crawling on the ceiling because, of course, he's crawling on the ceiling. And
Yeah.
and he's over Krieg, and Krieg just kind of looks up because he hears this childlike laughter over him, and Sam just drops down shrieking at him.
The yell, the like
Oh yeah.
primordial yell that comes from Sam is so
Mm-hmm.
frightening.
And they tussle with each other, and Krieg manages to throw the little boy off and into this big old mirror. And this is where he pounds at his window for his next door neighbor, Principal Wilkins, for help. And you just barely hear the screw you from Wilkins through the glass. And he steps inside, and Sam pounces again, throwing Krieg into the wall. And yeah, they fight, and Krieg manages to rip the burlap sack off of Sam's face, and it reveals this fairly demonic pumpkin child.
As he shrieks again, like,
Yes.
just attacking the camera.
Yep.
It felt like very like a Child's Play 1.
Yeah.
Like when Chucky reveals himself to Andy's mom, and he just like attacks it. It's like so feral, and just like his head's like spinning and crazy.
Yep.
That's what it felt like.
Sam's got his candy bar razor blade again, but Krieg manages to throw him off. Sam drops the blade. And as the old man kind of reaches for his gun, the kid is biting at his leg. And you get this awesome reaction shot from Sam as suddenly there's a gun in his face right before the shot to the head that sends him sliding across the floor all the way to the front door, where he just slams against the door. There's pumpkin innards falling out of the wound, and there's a kind of a pile of them near where they were fighting,
like little
too.
seeds and everything.
Yep.
I love it.
Yep. And so Krieg painfully gets up and reloads. He blasts Sam once in the chest and once in the wrist, severing his hand. And then he walks over to dial 911. And he's placed on hold immediately. And this is that bit that I was telling you about earlier, where I discovered this for the very first time. They got some John Williams music in this. The hold music is the score from the scene from Superman the movie where they're on their date flying the whole "If You Can Read My Mind" thing.
It's such a random song.
I mean, it's WB, so I'm sure they were able to get the rights to it pretty easily. But
yeah, and it's funny too because Doherty worked on Superman Returns, which is a continuation of Christopher Reeve's Superman story.
Yeah, it's
so
like the real Superman 3, right?
Oh my god, it's such a random song though to have.
It is. It's so weird. And then as soon as he gets somebody on the line, the phone cord gets ripped out. And he looks around, and there's Sam still slumped against the front door. Cue the Evil Dead 2 disembodied hand stabbing him in the leg with the razor blade. Oh. And he kicks it off and falls to the floor. I don't know how he's standing anyways after, getting, his ankle sliced like that. But yeah, he drops to the floor again. And yeah, the hand comes to and kind of scampers off.
Yeah, let me
You
just
know,
poke Sam.
Yep. And we get the "you got to be fucking kidding me" thing as this happens, which is, great homage to the Thing. Again,
Yes.
perfect because, Krieg, his whole look is supposed to be like John Carpenter. With the
He does
lawns.
look it like so
Yeah.
much.
Yep. And so he grabs his gun, realizes he's out of shells, and just kind of drops it aside, and then looks up to see the hand dragging the mask back over to Sam. And the hand just kind of taps at him on the leg to wake him up. And so then it turns itself around, kind of reattaching itself to Sam's wrist. You see the innards of the pumpkin stuff kind of coming back together because this shit just kind of flows throughout his entire body. He is some kind of weird pumpkin child. Oh, so good. And this is where Sam just, well, no, at first, Krieg is looking at all of this happening and he lets out this weak little, "oh no."
I love it. This is where like the comedic timing of Ryan Cox, which he's so good at as well.
Oh, yeah.
Like if you've seen like Super Troopers or anything like that.
Yep.
And he's not just this menacing figure as an actor and stuff. He's or dramatic. He's also so funny in that. Oh no, it's so good.
Yep. And Sam kind of lifts up his wrist and he looks at his hand and you hear the little, cracking of his fingers and everything. And yeah, he reaches down and he pulls his mask back on. And then he draws this jack-o'-lantern sucker from one of the kids' sacks that were left by the front door. So this is where we discover how he got this sucker thing. And he takes this big old bite out of it and it creates this, wonderfully wicked little weapon here. And Krieg grabs a liquor bottle and smashes it to create a weapon of his own, but Sam just easily grabs his wrist and snaps it. And he raises this sucker up to strike and he brings it down in a stabbing motion. And Krieg is screaming like crazy, only to realize that Sam has stabbed a fallen candy bar and is happy now that he's been given something good to eat. This is like all he really wanted out of this guy was just to, like all
Embrace
the writing.
holiday, yeah.
Yep. You need to embrace the holiday. You need to follow the traditions and you need to give me some candy, which he has now technically done. So the boy kind of steps away with his prize and he turns and he gives Krieg just one last look. And then the door just opens and closes for Sam on its own. It's wild. But Krieg just kind of stares on like, what the hell just happened? And then, cut to a little while later. And also Krieg is burning old photos from his bus driving days. I don't know why he has photos of these things, including the kids that he was
incriminating.
I know you would have burned these things long ago, dude. Come on.
Or had them in a safe. Like, what kind of weirdo are you?
He's definitely a weirdo.
Look, you kill people, but God, do it smartly.
Yes.
Jesus.
So here's where we get probably even more innocent kids than the clown trio. We've got three little pigs. They come knocking at the door.
Cute.
Yes. And Krieg gives them candy. And the final one, they all say thank you in the best little kid way. But the final one says, "Thanks, Mr. Krieg. Great mummy costume," because he's all bandaged up from his wounds.
It's a little chuckle he gives out like,
Yep. And so he looks next door and he sees Billy dressed as his father, Principal Wilkins, with the matching blood stain on the white shirt and everything.
The glasses.
Yep. And he's handing out candy from the front porch, probably poisoned and razor bladed up candy. And we see Rhonda across the street. We're cutting back to her with the wagon with the final pumpkin. This is why I think all of this stuff is happening after the werewolf thing. So, and also
she was getting hit by the car.
Yeah, because these are the girls before. No, this is still before the werewolf thing then, because they had
No, I
yet.
think it's after because Anna Paquin's like wiping her mouth, like she's giggling in the passenger
Okay.
seat.
Okay. So yeah, they grew their skin back and got their costumes back on. I
Mm.
don't know.
Yeah, which is
This is why
it's a
we need the
lot at that
murder
point.
board with the red strings. That's why
We
we
would look
need
like
all that.
Charlie Day though.
Yes.
But like, no, this is what happens. They put these torn costumes back together. They sewed them back.
Yep, exactly. Um, so yeah, we see them, uh, and we've got Sam kind of standing watch on the sidewalk again, staring at Krieg. And this is where we get Emma and Henry again coming back home, and Sam witnesses her blowing out the jack-o'-lantern, and he's got more work to do. So he scampers off after them, and Krieg goes to head back inside. And he steps back in, shuts the door, and immediately there's another knock. And he comes back out to find the undead kids from the quarry, thirsty for revenge. And the vampire kid, of course, says, "Trick or treat." And we cut to black and then get a great final stinger of comic book panels depicting the old man being torn to pieces.
And great music.
Oh, yeah.
Great
Yes,
soundtrack.
because we get credits and the awesome score from this film. I can't remember who the composer is, but wow, is it a fun horror score. I love it. Oh my God, I love it. This movie.
And the comic book art just like mimicking like some of the Tales from the Crypt, like back in the day
Mhm.
comics, the EC comics. Like
Yep.
it's the panels, everything like that. It's just it's such a love letter to horror, and not in the sense that we've seen with other horror movies. Like when you see Shaun of the Dead, you understand the influences of
Oh, sure.
George Romero. Like this is such a touchstone for different horror that doesn't get enough love, right?
Mhm.
Werewolves don't get enough
No,
love,
they
and
don't. I love a good
which is
werewolf
weird.
flick. Yeah, because you always hear them mentioned in the same breath as vampires and, other, typical tropey Halloween style monsters. And yeah, when's the last time you saw a good werewolf flick, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And then the the adherence to tradition and Doherty creating having this idea of Sam, this spirit, literally the living embodiment of
Mm-hmm.
Samhain, being a force of nature and that's why in a sense when a lot of people are like, why do you love Sam so much? For me, it's just how innocent he is. He's so primordial.
Mm-hmm.
He's like he does bad things, but it's because they're traditions. You have to follow the traditions. If you don't, you will be punished. And it's a very simplistic black and white view of Halloween.
Yes.
And I just love like what he does. Like, yeah, all right, maybe he might kill a cat, but you know what? Maybe that cat did something to him. You don't know that. I
Maybe the
don't
cat got
condone
out of
it,
the
but
bag
listen,
later. Who knows?
yeah.
We don't know how that played out.
But and to go back with Rhonda's, like to see for her to acknowledge him and him to acknowledge her
Mhm.
because she literally follows the rules to a T.
Oh, yeah.
Sh And nothing bad happens to her, and it's not like he's looking to hurt people, he just wants to adhere to the traditions of his time,
Yes.
and Doherty's so smart of how he writes Sam. It's a character that as the years go by, I feel like he gets more recognition, and as we have all this merchandise, as I mentioned, at Spirit Halloween, you
Mm-hmm.
yourself just purchased a figure,
Yep.
and it's awesome to see, but it it makes it so abundantly clear we need a sequel to kind
Yeah.
of cement him as one of these icons of horror and a newer generation. Because I mean, even with someone new, let's say like Art the Clown, right, with Terrifier,
Sure.
he has such a impact already within the horror community with 2 films alone, or
Mm-hmm.
3 if you count like the one,
Yeah.
like the anthology that he's a part of as well.
Mm-hmm.
But he has such a staying power, and it makes sense with a lot of horror fanatics as ourselves being like, oh, yeah, Art the Clown, he's that guy. He's that next icon for a newer generation. And a lot of us, I think, want Sam to be.
Yeah.
And I would consider him to because he's literally the living embodiment of Halloween, of spooky season. but he's not there because we don't have too much material to go off. There's 2 comic book
Right.
series, one that just basically recaps this movie, and another one that he did, which was a graphic novel, which is really good. I highly suggest everyone read it. But we had that announcement of Trick or Treat 2, what, 5 years ago?
It's been a while, and I think there
Yeah.
was a somewhat recent thing from Doherty about like, yeah, I'm still tinkering with it, but really crickets, right?
I feel
What
like
would you?
Legendary will do it because, like,
Yeah,
he also did right by them, but with what was it, Godzilla King Kong? Oh no, that was Adam Wingard.
he
Correct me.
did King of the
King of
Monsters.
Monster.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
which
like
not a
he's
bad
already made
Godzilla film.
man.
I like that one well enough.
Yeah.
Um,
And
yeah.
Krampus. I mean, we got
Oh
Krampus as
God,
well
yeah.
out of this,
I
which
love
is
Krampus.
great.
Yes. What would you say, just because I happened to watch this again fairly recently, what about a little like mini series of shorts a la Over the Garden Wall, featuring Sam?
Ooh.
Um,
I would
I,
love that. I remember FearNet. Do you remember FearNet
oh
back in
yeah.
the day? Yeah, and I remember they did something similar to what we had Christmas time with A Christmas Story playing 24 hours,
Yeah.
on TBS. They had 24 hours of Trick or Treat, and they had these special shorts they filmed. And that was
Nice.
like the last media that we had that was like motion picture or TV in sense of Sam. And it was like in the holidays. I always use that as my Christmas photo. Like when Halloween ends, it turns into Sam with like the winter hat on and the snow and stuff. And I would love something to keep him in the zeitgeist
Yeah.
for also casual fans.
Yeah. Something that didn't have to be your local spirit Halloween. Um,
Hmm.
as much as I appreciate all the merch, yeah, yeah, it could be better than what they have at Spirit. Sorry, guys, but
Yeah, because I would love to go to like. There's so much stuff, even when you go to like a Target or whatever. Like I saw so much stuff that was, or Walgreens. No, that's what it was. I went to Walgreens with my kids just to grab like a drink or something, and the Halloween stuff is in. I'm like, ooh, Halloween stuff. Gotta check it
mhm,
out. And there's Pennywise, and there's Freddy Krueger, and Jason, and the Demigorgon, obviously because of Stranger Things being so
sure,
popular. And I was like, man, Warner Brothers has the rights to a lot of these movies, like Nightmare on Elm Street and stuff, and they'll put Freddy on everything, which is smart. He's a very marketable,
sure.
horror icon. But it's just so easy because he's so cutesy in that burlap sack. Why is there not just in regular stores, not just Spirit Halloween, Sam stuff everywhere, posters, especially around this time?
The funny thing is, I was able to buy that NECA figure at my local Meijer, the big Midwest
Okay.
grocery chain.
Yeah.
Um, I could have gotten it at Target as well, but even at that Meijer, they even had the 3-pack of the little kids with the masks from Halloween 3. Um,
Oh, see, that's even awesome. Yeah.
yeah. So, it's nice to see some of this stuff, the merch, being in more mainstream places, not just the adult toys section of your local Target, but it's cool to see. Um, yeah, more trick or treat, please. More holiday themed horror from Doherty. That would be good. Um,
He has
yeah,
such a knack for it because
yeah.
Krampus is
Krampus
so
is so
well
much fun.
done.
I forced my folks to watch that with me last Christmas when I was spending time with them down in Florida. Um, it was fun. I don't think my dad particularly enjoyed it. He's not really into comedies or horror films. My mom's really not into horror films so much, even though her name is Rosemary and she was teased without mercy over Rosemary's
Oh,
Baby because,
yeah.
she would have been
That
in
makes
like high school and college around that time that book and movie were a big thing. Um,
that's
but,
hilarious.
but, um, yeah, yeah. Krampus is fantastic, and I have absolutely made sure to add that to my regular Christmas viewing. Um,
Same.
just
And
like,
that goes hand in hand with quintessential like old school kind of like traditional, like talking about Krampus tradition and what it means and
mhm.
things like that. And that's so darkly comedic.
Yeah.
It's so Tony Collette is so good in that.
Yes, she is.
And he has such a knack for this like holiday themed. Not that he necessarily need to do one, obviously
No.
Eli Ross doing a Thanksgiving one right now.
Right.
So
Right.
finally, after all these years, by the way.
Yes. Yes.
But I don't need everything like that, but he has such a knack for horror, and I would love like something maybe another themed one would be nice, like a Valentine's Day or something like that. So to take the stain of the David Boreanaz Valentine's Day movie.
Right. Right. Yeah. Let's wash that out. And then maybe we could get a fun, carnivorous Easter bunny movie. You know, we can dream. I normally ask a guest, final thoughts on the film that we talked about at this point, but I think we've gotten most of them out there, unless there's anything else that you have to say about Trick or Treat.
No, I would honestly say this has to be must-see viewing for anyone.
Oh yeah.
I can see where some people who have like a more like gorier mindset for horror, like people who love to see kills and gore and stuff like that. There's plenty of it here. There's
Oh, yeah.
little things here, but it feels so timeless. Other than, like the artwork getting dropped, those
Yeah.
those two times. That's the only time where it places it in these aughts or like
Yeah.
early like late 90s.
Or
I
the
was like,
style
ah,
of
yeah,
cell
that's right.
phones.
Yeah. But there's like the timelessness of the town, the
Hmm.
story it tells, the fun it has because it's so much fun. And you could get like legitimately good scares out of it as well. None of the horror movies don't necessarily need, in my point of view, need to be something where you're terrified at the end. You can get a jump scare here and there and just live in this horror world. Like Crimson Peak to me is like to go a little bit off topic, is a great horror movie in my sense, but it's so because it's so gothic and everything,
Hmm.
like it's so horror adjacent that I think it's a good movie, not necessarily like jump scares here and there, but it's so well crafted. And this
Yes.
this feels like that. Like this feels like this could be at any given time, any given place, any small town, and it's just oddly enough how complicated it is with the timing and everything and how it plays with it. It's a simple movie
It
of
is.
traditions and Halloween.
Hmm.
That's
And
all it is.
simple film, but it is incredibly well put together.
Yeah.
It's, oh my God, you got to be able to appreciate that, even if you don't care for the film that much. If you watch this and you see how all four stories weave into each other, and you don't at least appreciate how well that was taken care of, there's something wrong with you. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I
Absolutely. And we
absolutely,
can't be friends. If you don't like
yeah.
this movie, we can't be friends.
Yeah, sorry. That's kind of
Yeah.
a red flag deal breaker right here. You got to at
Mm-hmm.
least somewhat enjoy Trick or Treat. So, yeah, thank you for bringing this film and this conversation.
Absolutely.
I really appreciate being able to do this again. If you'd like, Carlos, where can people find you?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I'm your doctor recommended dose of nerdiness, aka your nerd a day. You can find me on youtube.com/nerd a day, where I have the Nerd a Day podcast. And more recently, we launched it, but there's a little bit of a break just because a bunch of giant video games came out, like Starfield and Baldur's Gate. But we have a Final Fantasy retrospective podcast where I launched with alongside Frank and Har from Point of Progress, called Chaos Bringers, where we are going through each numbered Final Fantasy title. Right now, I've completed 4. I'm just waiting for Frank to take some time away of Starfield and Baldur's Gate to play Final Fantasy 4. That'll be our next episode when that happens. But yeah, you can follow me on socials as well. Nerd a Day on everything but X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it. There's underscores there. But yeah, so I have posted all my stuff there. And yeah, anywhere you can find audio podcasts as well, you'll see that there as well. And twitch.tv/nerdy. I'm trying to bring the streaming back soon, hopefully,
All right.
especially with
All
Spider-Man
right.
2 on the horizon.
Yeah, man. We are definitely eating well in 2023 where video games are concerned. Unfortunately, the people that make them are not doing quite so well.
Mm-mm.
Um, but that is an absolutely separate topic. But labor strong is all I'm saying.
Hell yeah.
But otherwise, this has been Murders with Mertens, a horror film podcast. Thank you for letting us tickle your ear holes. Please like, share, and subscribe if you are so inclined. I'll be back soon enough with another episode, but until next time, stay spoopy, everyone.